Here to show support, Betty Confetti. Hello, hi, good morning. Good morning here from India. I guess good evening there. So sweet of you as always. You've been very supportive, very nice. Thank you. Thank you for all the support on my music and just in general. You're very sweet. Thank you so much. Thanks a lot. I will just get this ready. Bum bum bum. Bum 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 bum. Bum 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 bum. Bum 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 bum. Bum bum bum. Bum 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 bum. Bum 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 bum. Bum bum bum. Bum bum bum. Bum 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 bum. Bum 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 bum. Bum bum bum. I am ready. All my bags are packed. I'm ready to go. I'm leaving on a jet plane. Don't know where I'll be going now. Leaving on a jet plane. Leaving on a jet plane. So, I guess I'm audible. I am live. Everything is okay. So, I'm ready. Just let the comments rolling and then we'll get the show that you deserve. Show that you deserve. You deserve it. How are you doing, Betty? You were supposed to come to India. Did you what's up with your plan of coming to India? Are you still looking at it? Oh, God. So so you want something and you call, and I come running to fight, and I'll be at your door. I got a comment. Audible, says Mr. Ankit Jindal. Thank you so much. I guess I'm audible on YouTube as well. And here we go. Bum bum bum. Bum 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 bum. Bum bum bum. Hello everybody. Welcome to Thinker's Frequency. We're having such a good time. This is the peak of human civilization. We're working so hard, doing such good work for ourselves, our parents, our kids, our siblings, our husbands, our wives, our friends, everybody. Well, not other people's husbands and wives, I hope. And just when we thought things couldn't get any better, like they couldn't possibly get any better, well, they just did. Things just got a whole lot better, ladies and gentlemen, called divine intervention. Now we have Thinker's Frequency, our daily mental workout, our daily dose of insights and analysis, which don't lead to paralysis, right before we punch in. So let's continue with our journey of reading between the lines, things that are especially interesting and important in the world of business and finance. Let's go! Oh, but before we go, there is a tradition we follow, right? The sacred tradition. The tradition of the simultaneous sip. And all you need for the simultaneous sip is a cup or mug or glass, a tank, a chalice or stein, a canteen jug or flask or a vessel of any kind. Pour it with your favorite liquid. Today I'm having hot water with black pepper in it. It's actually very good for me. I've started feeling. Anyway, here we go. Oh my god. Oh my god. Beautiful. Sublime. Let's do it again. So nice. You know what the simultaneous sip says, right? You know what it says? It says that you're not alone. It says that we're in this together. And that's such a nice thing to say. So let's go. So, ET has this section where they talk to a scholar, which is one of the most wasteful sections I find, because a lot of what these scholars say doesn't need to be said. So, here's another one of that. Despite supplying 90% of its oil exports to China, Iran is weakened now. Beijing is watching. Turkey rise as Middle Eastern power. Well, who didn't know that? Who did not know that? Yeah, anyway, US economy shrank 0.5% in quarter 1, worse than estimates. So, Commerce Department previously estimated the economy would fall 0.2%, but it has fallen 0.5%. However, there's no big deal because it'll jump in the next quarter to up to 3%. So what happened was a lot of imports started happening because of the rise in tariffs or because of the anticipated rise in tariffs. A lot of imports started rising, and as those imports started to rise, the economy essentially had, so to speak, decline. So even though imports actually lead to some economic influx, because all those imports lead to consumption and so on and so forth, they do not need to be counted. So what it says is the January March drop in GDP, nation's output of goods and service, refers 2.4% increase last 3 months and marked the first time in 3 years that economy contracted. Imports expanded 37.9%, fastest since 2020, and pushed the GDP down by nearly 4.7%. So it says that trade deficits reduce GDP, but that's a matter of mathematics. GDP is supposed to count only what's produced domestically, not stuff that comes in from abroad. So imports, which show up in the GDP report, have to be subtracted to keep them from artificially inflating the GDP numbers. So this is because of extreme rise, 37.9% rise in imports of the US, that you saw the economy shrink 0.5%. So they say that it will come back to 3% the next quarter, and it reversed a 3% over a 3% growth last quarter. Why? Because people started anticipating that the tariffs would lead to a lot of problems. So front loading of these imports started happening. Viewers of Thinkers Frequency would remember how we discussed about front loading and its effects in the economy. It's very similar to what happens when we know that the petrol is going to see a 1 rupee rise tomorrow. So you see a long line outside the petrol stations just so people can buy 1 rupee cheaper fuel the day before it rises. Similar to that, countries also do it. So as America anticipated the rise in prices from imports from China, they brought a lot of stuff in. So that happened. We saw this coming. It's not a surprise to us. We've been talking about this for a long time. Uh, by the way, one quarter the economy shrinks, you see, it's okay, it's fine. But if two consecutive quarters the economy shrinks, it's called a recession. So there was a recession when Joe Biden was in power, but they didn't count it as a recession. They just changed the definition of recession, which is so funny. However, right now there are no signs of recession, which is nice, which is good news for America. And even for India, because if there's a recession in America, a lot of Indian companies are going to suffer, right? So, Trump's 893 billion budget request more drones, missiles, fewer F-35s. So, of course, more drones and missiles should not be a surprise to anybody. Viewers of Thinkers Frequency would know that it's just nice to not go to war anymore. Just count the number of drones two countries have. The ones, the one which more has more drones is essentially the winner. Just declare them the winner because that's how it is. If you look at war between Azerbaijan and Armenia, that's what happened. Drone superiority did so much. Israel, of course, and then even in India and Pakistan, you saw Indian drones doing a lot of good work. So, drone superiority is is paramount in this day and age as far as the export defense scenario is considered. By the way, fewer F-35s. F-35 was the fifth generation plane, which was essentially talked about in the early 2000s, and it came in the early 2000s or mid 2000s, or yeah, at that time. But it didn't really pan out as the force it was supposed to be because the budget overran and the plane was so expensive. It's like an $80 million plane. It's almost $100 million plane actually. So it's such an expensive plane that you've got to look at it from a lot of varying perspectives, right? So fewer F-35s make absolute sense as far as American fleet is considered. Moving on, considering a drone, when we talked about drone, an Indian company, a Noida-based company called RAF Mabir, has gotten a lot of funding. It has raised $150 million, and just today, it's there is a news of Ralph Memir. I'm not sure on how to pronounce it. I'm pretty sure I'm pronouncing it wrong. But drone startup Raf Amphibr. That's what you come to me for, right? Raf Amphibr lands 100 million at a 900 million value. So you see, drones are the superpower of today. Moving forward, Musk confidant Afshar has left Tesla. So it was a chief of staff kind of a role, and the powerful executive of Tesla, once of Elon Musk closest confidants, has left the company, and this is the second in line because there was a big level exit at Tesla some time ago, very recently. So this is second in line. However, I don't think it matters because Tesla is really uh, it's gonna have an incredible 2026. So you know about the 2026 plans of Tesla. So Optimus, Tesla's robot, will be out in 2021 and 26, and not just that, the cars, the robo taxi, will also be out in 2026. So what you're looking for in 2026 are some extraordinary moves of Tesla. So the company is just going to be in a very different space in a year from now. So that said, moving on. Xiaomi uh, to launch SUV shares near record high. As we always keep talking about, Xiaomi is just a freak of nature, right? In fact, all companies, all Chinese companies are freaks of nature. Xiaomi started as a mobile manufacturing company, a mobile brand, and it grew as the Apple of China, with China's support, of course. And even in India, it just captured every bit of the market. Now it's ventured into electric cars, and those electric cars are really killing it, apparently. So it's taken over BYD in terms of value. So let me read this out. The unveiling of Xiaomi's first electric SUV will showcase how the Chinese tech company has become an investor darling with its high stakes bet on auto market. So, 64% rise in shares this year alone, now valued at $187 billion. Xiaomi is worth more than Chinese EV leader BYD as it grows its footprint in the world's largest car market. So China is world's largest car market. We talked about. So do you remember the size of Indian car market? You do remember it, right? We talked about it. Yes, 4 million cars. So we sold 40 lakh cars last year. We sell about 3.5 lakh cars in a month in India. And what does China sell? Just imagine. We sell 40 lakhs. They sell 3.2 crores, 30 million. So huge difference in the market size of China and India. And now since Xiaomi has attacked it, it's gonna be looking at a big piece of that market. How it grew. So SUV is a hallmark of Xiaomi's $10 billion EV strategy as larger vehicles gain popularity across China. It also signifies a deeper shift in Xiaomi's business model, offering consumers the ability to sync key aspects of their daily life. So, much like Apple, if you have a car and if you have a phone and if you have other devices linked, it leads to a lot of good outcomes, right? The whole Apple approach. And you know what? Apple actually responded. People asked, how does it feel for Apple watching Xiaomi copy its features so blatantly? Is it flattery or is it just intellectual property theft? So Apple said that's not flattery after a while. That signifies how big the threat is, right? Because if you look at it, there were reports of Apple launching its car, but which didn't happen. So Apple couldn't launch its car, but you're looking at Xiaomi launching its car. Moving on. Dalal Street heats up to 9-month high as West Asia cools. Well, who saw this coming? Who saw this coming? Everybody, but us. We talked a lot about this, you remember? We were talking about how it's going to be very good for the stock market as soon as the Iran affair cools down. And that's what happened. Banking stocks fired up, dollar index at a 3-year low adds to optimism. So Nifty indices 9.8% up, capital markets, realty 6%, even IT is up, infrastructure, everything is up. Defense has cracked a little because peace is never good news for defense sector. So that's cracked a little. But other than that, it's a pretty good scene as far as Indian markets are considered, right? Uh, Unfortunately, due to the crash, the Air India crash, Tata has planned a 500 crore trust for families of crash victims. So Tata going above and beyond the call of duty. However, a different angle to this is that if this reaches the British court, because the flight was headed to London, so there was a news that this particular incident could be reaching the British court or something. I'm forgetting the term for that. But if it reaches there, the victims could be eligible for extraordinary sums of payments, and you know, for whatever happened. So, oh my god, oh my god, I just saw my friend on the newspaper, the ad, IDBI ad. Wow, that was that's interesting. That's interesting. Nice. Housing sales have fallen sharply in the June quarter in India. Top seven markets, housing sales have gone down. And this isn't surprise to anybody. Viewers of Thinkers Frequency would know that housing market was heating up for the past 8 quarters quite a lot. And all that heating up has led to eventual and inevitable slowdown. Uh, we discussed how numbers of Delhi weren't available, but Pune, Mumbai, Bangalore, Hyderabad, all markets had gone in double digits down. So a lot of thinking as far as the real estate market is considered. It's going to be tough from here on to sell real estate units, and it's not just the housing units which have gotten a bit low. Even the commercial units are looking at a decline, which should not be surprising because these things are cyclical, right? You can't just keep going up as far as the market is considered. So, no surprises there. Speaking of no surprises, Indians trying to go abroad, Indians specifically US, is showing no signs of slowdown. No matter what happens in US, Indians really want to go. So there's this way called 01 visa. It's like H1B, but H1B is lottery based. 01 is not lottery based. It's basically skill based or talent based or whatever. So it's for exceptional talent. So if you've written research papers and publications and books or whatever, and you have a profile, you've visited conference and so on and so forth, conferences, spoken in them, you can then apply for this 01 visa. And its application on the employer side is slightly more expensive. So so Indians are flocking to it, of course, as compared to a few lakh people, 2.2 lakh people which got H1B visa in the last year. 22,000 people got 0 to 1, 01 visa last year, and people are now looking at this particular way. So, however possible, Indians just continue to find ways to move out of India. That somehow doesn't instill a lot of optimism, right? If Indian rich people, especially rich people, not the poor people, rich people, if they just keep looking at ways to go out of India, uh, what does it say about the country? Yes, the country is doing well. Yes, we have a lot of good numbers to show for. But this kind of not just brain drain, it's not brain drain, mind you. Brain drain can never be a problem for India because we're so many people. All you need is good skilling, and brains will be replenished, and Indians will find a way. It's the money drain. When rich people go out, they take a lot of opportunities with them. So, moving on, a lot of IPOs are happening in the Indian market. JSW1. JSW1 is the e-commerce unit of JSW. JSW is Jindal Steelworks. So it's nothing to do with Mr. Ankit Jindal, who is currently watching Thinkers Frequency. But Jindal Steel had started an e-commerce, a B2B e-commerce and manufacturing play. So that was called GSW1. So that is going IPO in a $1 billion value, at a $1 billion value. No surprise there. JSW played its cards really well as far as this whole B2B commerce operation is considered. They said that nobody can even imagine how steel can be traded on on our platform. So Shadowfax, the Flipkart logistics company, is also gonna go IPO, and Pine Labs, the payments company, the payment device company, it's also gonna have a 2,600 crore offer for sale. NBFCs are gonna go IPO because now that we are looking at market stabilizing, the IPO market will actually be looking at some sort of fillip, and you can expect some good things to happen. What I hope for is that this doesn't lead to frothy valuations and people losing money, which is eventually a very, very big possibility, as pointed out in the case of Lenskart and in the case of Oyo. Lenskart getting a $10 billion valuation is just insane, and Oyo just going IPO is insane. So let's see how those two things pan out. Rajnath Singh, sir, refuses to sign on the SCO statement for skipping Pahalgam. So SCO is Shanghai Corporation, uh, Shanghai Cooperation Organization, SCO. It's a China bloc. So Mr. Rajnath Singh met the defense minister of China uh, just yesterday, and there was supposed to be a joint statement, and he didn't sign that joint statement because it didn't mention Pahalgam. So that's a very strong statement of what do we call it? Protest. So let's see how this particular thing gets. India, by the way, is also looking at something called uh, looking at reconsidering its water treaty with Bangladesh. So people would already know that India has refused to adhere to the IWT, Indus Water Treaty. That's an India Pakistan water sharing agreement, Indus Water Treaty. The adherence to that is let go as a sign of protest against the terrorist attacks. Now, something like that is also going to be happening with Bangladesh and the hostile regime of Bangladesh. This could be having some serious repercussions. Now, if you put all these three news items together, that India meeting China and then not signing a joint agreement, or let's say a joint statement, not agreement, and then India already in conflict with Pakistan with the IWT uh, haven't been a bit, and then something similar happening with Bangladesh where the water treaty gets cancelled, and all these three countries essentially threatening. So Pakistan has mentioned that if the water is stopped, it will be an act of war. So if you look at these three news items together, it could be a problem for our country. So we ought to be looking at it very carefully. I'm sure these people are considering all the possibilities, but it sounds like trouble, right? Don't you think? Anyway, moving on. Iran's value in India's regional playbook is counter to Pakistan. So there's an aspect of Iran being a counterweight to Pakistan. India is considering that option. So India has very nicely uh, created the aspect of Afghanistan as a counter to Pakistan. So Afghanistan was one of the countries who very much supported India as far as the conflict was considered. India is looking at Iran in that regard. How much of that pans out is something to be watched out. However, that's an interesting proposition, right? Because Pakistan was talking about how uh, it 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 supports Iran. However, it didn't support Iran, and in fact, it led to the Nobel Peace Prize remark on Mr. Trump. So a lot of interesting dynamics getting played out. So just like China is essentially having Pakistan as a proxy to pressurize India, India might just be looking at that way at Iran. So that's pretty interesting. These things are very interesting. All that matters is how it affects us, right? When we look at it in the short term, in mid term, and in long term. So at the moment, the gas prices are hitting the ceiling. The gas prices, that is, the domestic gas prices, are hitting the ceiling decided by the government. So it can't go higher than that, and the government will be losing money if it goes higher than that because the prices temporarily went up. So as crude goes down, as prices go down of oil, we are going to have lower inflation, better market conditions, better economic uptick. So these are all good news. And India's ties with Iran are generally good news because Iran has been a supplies 50% of natural gas to India and 30% of its crude, right? So good relations with Iran could be a good news for India, is in fact a good news for India. There are no hypotheticals there. However, Iran is also a very, very close ally of China. And that sort of complicates everything, right? So if you look at the global world order, uh, the American right wing, what it says is that Biden's policies and erstwhile administration's policies have pushed Russia and China together. So Russia and China are closer than ever. In fact, Russia is making a pipeline which directly goes to China so that its oil supplies could be streamlined and could be easier. So that's very bad news for US because if Russia and China join hands, there's no power on earth which can match that kind of might, right? While that's bad news for US, it's also very bad for India because Russia has been a very close ally of India, and if Russia falls in line with China, it's obviously an existential threat if an exaggeration is allowed, and unfortunately, it should have meant India and US becoming close allies, but that hasn't panned out because US isn't a reliable ally and India and Russia have a very, very long history. So Russia and India have like a big brother and sibling kind of a relationship. So these things pan out and they decide what happens in the business world. So as we've discussed very, very seriously in the previous episodes, that all business outcomes are essentially results of political will and political situation. So I recently even wrote an article about JAL, Jay Prakash Associates Limited, right? About how political winds change everything. So just imagine that at a much bigger scale. So state politics, national politics, and then geopolitics. So everything rests on that. So we got to be very, very uh, aware of this, which we are. So Ayurveda misses the consumer healing touch. Segment forms just 1% of FMCG pie despite 92% household buying Ayurvedic products in FY25. So according to a research by Kantar, Ayurveda just has 1% of FMCG consumption in India despite 92% of households buying Ayurvedic products. So in Ayurvedic products, there's Dabur, there's Patanjali, there's Himalaya, there's so on and so forth. How can Ayurveda just have 1% of FMCG? So this particular report has been done by Kantar, and I see some problem with the data. I see some problem with the data because, okay, so an argument could be that not all of the SKUs of Patanjali are Ayurvedic products, right? That could be an argument that, okay, there's a very small subset of Patanjali, which is actually Ayurvedic product. But then there's Himalaya, and then there's Dabur. So people could say that even in Dabur, the SKUs which are Ayurvedic are low, and thus Ayurvedic penetration, despite being 92% of consumer household, is just 1%. And it says, there's been a decline in Patanjali and Vico sales this year, 6%, 7%. But still, something doesn't ring the bell. Something smells off with this. So they say Himalaya and Cholail expanded 7.5% and 1.3. However, sales of Patanjali and Vico fell 4% year on year, impacting the overall growth. However, even if you consider Vico and Himalaya and Patanjali and Dabur and products like Imami and then so on and so forth, do you think they don't make 1%? This is the second time I'm doubting a research done by Kantar. So this is the second time I feel there's something wrong with this particular research, with their research. First one was something to do with consumption. So they said they were calculating the grocery trips and grocery bag composition and the weight of it and the number of trips to grocery stores and also the amount of consumption basis those trips. And in that research, this particular company had not considered quick commerce and e-commerce at all. So they were basically making grocery trips as a proxy, making that grocery trip sound as a proxy to the overall consumption, and that too in the biggest and most metropolitan markets of the country. So these people clearly have something wrong with their research. So next time I'm going to see their report, I'm going to look at doubts. But yeah, moving on. A Department of Telecom is readying Pro Tools to catch cyber cons. So they are making a platform which banks and telecom operators could use to verify user identities, which has been long time coming, right? And a lot of this conversation has seen some pushback from telecom operators. Do you remember what that pushback was? uh, hint, it has something to do with what we discussed yesterday as far as the consumer spend on telecom services is considered. So you remember 86% of user spend on telecom operations is internet and just 17% or 14% is voice. So these companies, telecom operators, have long been complaining that we cannot solve the spam and con problem because we are not holding the OTT operators accountable. They say that you can bury us with regulations and you can bury us with norms and you can do whatever you can want to do as far as, you know, uh, laying down all the rules and regulations on us. But where are those rules as far as WhatsApp is considered? People on WhatsApp are still free to scam people, right? So you've got to look at that as well. So that is how it's going on. Cyber cons. By the way, interesting factoid. The word con man, you know what it means? You know what it comes from? Where it comes from? Etymologically speaking, it comes from confident man. So the word con word means confident man. I watched a movie called Catch Me If You Can, which is the biopic of Frank William Abagnale, one of the most legendary con mans of all time, greatest of all time. And then I watched his interviews just to find out how the movie was played out and how close was the depiction to the actual person. And it was great. It was wonderful. Moving on, oilseeds caught in a maze. India may pay a steep price. So apparently, India is the largest importer of edible oils, and close to 60% of its domestic requirement is imported. So India is the largest importer of edible oils, and that particular oil seeds, their growth of oil seeds is facing a challenge due to which prices are going to be looking at some sort of difficulty. So government is trying to incentivize the oil seeds. However, that's not led to a real flight as far as the moves are considered. Mr. Tushar Tiwari says it's a great movie. Oh, it was. It's probably uh, Steven Spielberg's best movie in my eyes. I love that movie a lot. So you're right. It's a great movie. It's an absolutely wonderful movie. Moving on. Government to help 100 agri food startups plow export field. So government is looking at prioritizing startups focusing on quality control, packaging, testing, C protocols, shelf life enhancements, so that India's farms exports could look at a fillip. This sounds like a great move, right? Indian farm to table, or let's say farm modernization startups, they got a lot of funding. I recently met an entrepreneur who was building a competitor to Dehat, and they had raised like $500 million. $500 million in total, uh, including debt. So it was just extraordinary. And now the government is looking at hand holding 100 agri food startups. Uh, India's FY25 farm exports was up 7.3%, and it's now looking at improving that particular number by a lot. By a lot. So, a lot of farm action is necessary to keep the 1 trillion export target of Mr. Piyush Goyal. India, an economy of $4 trillion now, 4.2, is is hoping to have $1 trillion in exports. So now, right now, we are at 750 billion or something. So Mr. Piyush Goyal says we're gonna have $1 trillion exports sometime soon. Moving on. FM asks Finance Minister Madam Nirmala Sitharaman has asked regulator to map aspirational needs of GIFT IFSC. So GIFT City in Gujarat is a sort of a special economic zone. It's an internationally designed, basically an international hub of trade in India. So they have GIFT IFSC, which is supposed to be good for the payment mechanisms. It's supposed to be a new. FM Nirmala Sitharaman called upon the finance sector regulators to take initiatives for identifying the aspirational needs of GIFT International Financial Services, GIFT IFSC, India's first international financial services center that aims to provide service to foreign multinational companies in India. So again, something very futuristic as far as the GIFT City is considered, and that particular dream is on. Dream is on. Pack driving almond and machinery exports from South Australia. So India is basically signing a lot of FTAs, right? If you remember, Mr. Piyush Goyal says that our FTA with Europe is going to be completed soon. It's going to be looking at fruition. So that's on with Australia as well. And South Australia produces 70% of country's premium wine and cranberry, and is keen on more excise duty cuts because it wants to export its wines and so on to India. A lot of premiumization of alcohol that we keep discussing in India, because alcohol consumption overall is declining, premiumization is going up, which is what's looking at all the M&A action, all the investment action, and all. We also discussed a very interesting cork story, right? That Portugal makes all the corks that are imported to close the whiskey and wine bottles, expensive ones. Housing sales hit a wall, price lockout buyers. 7 cities, we've already discussed that. Government to bring in barcodes to fight fake drug menace. Apparently, some scum on the earth, what they do is that they actually label drugs, so cancer drugs, and they sell wrong kind of drugs to people. So they just label drug units and replace them with fake units, and that's their business model, those pieces of shit. So the government is trying to look at barcodes in fighting this menace. I can't even imagine how people like that want to make money. I mean, why would you do that? Like, somebody is dying of cancer and he's trying to fight cancer and you're selling him a drug that is that is not even the cancer drug. So you're just deliberately, knowingly killing people. It's not even. So anyway, this is a big problem, and there was also a big problem as far as pharmaceutical factories in India were considered. A lot of controversy. So India exported some cough syrups to sub-Saharan African countries like Gambia, and those cough syrups led to a lot of deaths. Some 20 kids died, unfortunately. Rest in peace. So that particular incident led to a lot of regulatory, action as far as the entire pharma factory is considered. Over and above the pharma factory regulatory oversight, we are now going to be looking at the retail oversight. Who knows, the drugs we are eating or like taking, they could be fake as well. Domestic natural gas price to hit government ceiling in July, as I told you, but it's temporary. Eli Lilly to roll out diabetes medicine in pre-filled pen. So just look at the framing. It's called the diabetes medicine, not a weight loss drug, but a diabetes medicine. So it's gonna be a 17,000. Eli Lilly it has the drug called Monjaro, right? It's Eli Lilly has Monjaro. Yeah, Monjaro, and they have a quick pen kind of a thing. Like, there's gonna be a pen with four pre-filled shots, and then you're gonna be looking at taking those shots like that. It's gonna cost around 17,000, 4,500 rupees an odd a month, and they're gonna be looking at a lot of. So this particular drug is in news every day, all day. It's getting launched, and it's seeing a lot of news about Eli Lilly's drug, and then there's Vigovi's drug, and so on and so forth. Novo Nordisk, the other company which makes this drug, is Novo Nordisk. It makes Vigovi. Eli Lilly makes Monjaro, and so on and so forth. Semaglutide, essentially, and it's so this tells you a lot about how the media actually functions, right? You don't need to talk about this every day. There's no news item as far as this is considered. There's nothing new that's being talked about. Yet, what you're seeing is every day there's a news buzz. So, something to think about, right? This is essentially the seventh time I'm reading the same news article being pushed. There's no particular insight here or nothing new as far as the development or its marketing is considered. It's just the same information getting rehashed every day. So the media might of the pharma industry, right? Anyway, we aim to cut cost of logistics to 9% of GDP, says Mr. Nitin Gadkari. Now this is like insights of all insights, and it's extremely smart. It's extremely smart. So logistics drive everything. The price of transporting something is equals to the price of the product. It affects the price of the product, right? If let's say I make something in Delhi and I have to ship it in Mumbai and it's difficult, everything goes bad, right? If I'm growing bananas and I can't ship them because the roads are bad or there's some sort of bottleneck as far as their transportation is considered, why am I even growing bananas, right? So there was a case study which Mr. Modi, Mr. Narendra Modi, talked about before he was running for the first prime ministerial bid. So in 2012 or 13, he talked about some sort of roads to connect. So Gujarat had longitudinal roads, okay, as a part of the global quadrilateral and so on and so forth, but not latitudinal roads. And the lack of latitudinal roads led to some loss of the banana farmers, uh, in the east of Gujarat, neighboring Madhya Pradesh, and so on and so forth. So these people complained that we grow bananas, and these bananas, when they are going through these particular roads, because these roads have a lot of bumps, uh, by the time we reach the port, we're not being able to sell to Europe that much, because a lot of bananas get wasted. That's what they claim. And then Mr. Modi claimed that I said, no, there is a road. And they said, yes, there is a road, but it's not that high quality road. It's a stone road. We need a pebble road. And then when this pebble road was implemented in the next few years, these people saw a huge uh, rise in their incomes, because the 30% loss of bananas, which was just happening while the shipment was going on, didn't happen. So their margins improved by 30%. It changed lives. So in that spirit, what Mr. Gadkari says is, almost 12 years later, the combination of expressways, economic corridors, digital tolling, and green fuel adoption has helped significantly reduce logistics cost in the country, setting stage for India's next growth phase, road transport, says Mr. Nitin Gadkari. He says that pivotal role of logistics in the country's economic trajectory. Logistics costs have already come down to from 16% of Indian GDP to 10% of Indian GDP. And now what they're looking for is reducing them to 9% of Indian GDP. So if logistics cost go down uh, as GDP, some might think it's bad for Indian logistics industry, right? Because you're now spending less money on logistics. No, no. Because whatever the logistics industry sees for a decline is more than compensated by what the overall economy sees in an uptick. Because uh, everything depends on what and how we are able to transport ourselves. That's why crude is so important, right? Because when you talk about importing crude, you import crude, and where does that oil go? A lot of it goes in transportation and in energy consumption and so on and so forth, right? And if you bring down that cost, the thing becomes cheaper. And that's the strategy of Donald Trump in US, Mr. Trump, and here in India. Mr. Tushar Tiwari says those pre-2014 speeches were so inspiring. Yes, absolutely. Absolutely. They were like really insightful. Really insightful. Like when I heard this particular speech of banana uh, growers, or let's say farmers, and how they wanted a latitudinal road to go to the port so that their bananas could be exported to Europe, I was like, wow. Wow. And that they actually saw 30% of gross margins getting preserved because of a better road. I was like, man, this is extraordinary. This is extraordinary. Speaking of stuff that's extraordinary, JSW is seeking an open hearing in the BPSL liquidation review plea. So we just discussed it yesterday, and Mr. Patil, who doesn't seem to be here today, asked, why did Supreme Court cancel JSW's takeover of BPSL, Bhushan Power and Steel, and called it illegal? Again, JSW, Jindal Steelworks, doesn't have anything to do with Mr. Ankit Jindal, who's who's listening to Thinker's Frequency. But JSW actually acquired BPSL through a bankruptcy code in 2021. And after 4 years, in 2025, May 2, Supreme Court said that that takeover is illegal. And then JSW and the banks who got their money and everybody was taken aback. Uh, it was just unbelievable, right? So then these companies said that, hey, we cannot just return the company, and the banks cannot refund us. So three things will have to happen. Banks will have to refund JSW the money they paid. JSW will have to refund the international bank the money it got from them. Then the money invested in BPSL, that cannot be refunded, because you just don't acquire a company and start running it, right? You invest in it. So all that is very difficult. So Supreme Court said, okay, let's go with the status quo for now. Now the question is, why did Supreme Court actually deem the takeover illegal? It's because Supreme Court said that JSW tried playing smart with the court. It delayed a lot of proceedings. It was supposed to pay something in 30 days. It took 2.5 years. It cited delays which cost money to the IBC and courts. It whatever plans in projections it gave as far as the recovery were considered, they were not adhered to, and it essentially took the court for a ride, which is the nature of how business works in India. So Supreme Court said this is illegal, give the company back. But it was too little, too late, right? Justice delayed is justice denied. So Supreme Court acted in good faith. However, now that the transaction is completed and has been 4 years, banks just begged and everybody just begged, just don't do this. Everything is gonna get ruined. And it looks like Supreme Court is playing ball. So Mr. Avijit Kumawat asks, did you study about the SEO summit? Oh yeah, we talked about it just now, probably before you joined, so won't like to repeat it, but let's go. Bank Nifty scales new peak, strong buying, short covering, no surprise there. Speaking of really good outcomes, Policy Bazaar founders, PB in fintech founders, have sold 920 crore worth of shares. So Mr. Yashish Dhaya and Alok Bansal, they've sold like 920 crores of shares. Yashish Dhaya held 4.3% stake in the company, and Alok Bansal, Mr. Alok Bansal held 1.4%. So now that's gonna come down, but 920 payday, great payday for PB Tech co-founders, right? ADI, life insurance are looking at investing in gold ETFs. They say gold, if we're not allowed to invest in gold ETFs right now, please allow us because gold is doing so well. But do you think gold could be looking at some sort of stress now that the geopolitical tensions are coming down? I think yes, and in fact, something like that has happened already. The gold was flat. Gold was consistently rising, and I think it might just be looking at a marginal decline, if not an outright, uh, let's say, easing. Moving on, Pine Labs is going for IPO. We've already discussed that. Why AI's productivity hype needs a good pinch of salt. People say AI is supposed to make people productive, but that's not happened yet. It's just being used to waste time. But that's with every technology, right? Every technology has that journey. AI is starting to wear down democracy, says some sort of pundits. Amazon's founder Bezos has a very lavish, Jeff Bezos, sir. I've read a book called Everything Store. It's the biography of Jeff Bezos. Extraordinary book. Extraordinary book. Like what a book. So he's having his second marriage to Lauren Sanchez. Unfortunately, I wasn't invited, and I think you haven't been invited either. So we poor people can enjoy being poor, not getting invited to Jeff Bezos' wedding. That said, this is pretty much it. This is what I have for you today. The 33rd episode of Thinker's Frequency, our daily mental workout, our daily dose of insights and analysis which don't lead to paralysis right before we punch in. I wish you a beautiful day, personally and professionally, and I hope to see you tomorrow, same place, same time. Goodbye.